Hi, I still don't have a formal intro. Today, beside me, I have an Arizona Southern-style sweet tea, refrigerated, not iced, cause f*** ice. If you've been on TikTok in the past couple of years, you've probably seen a guy with an account called Alpha Dom. If you haven't, he's this guy.
You do not have to accept her rejection.
Well, I know he's probably old news by now. My capacity for being a hater transcends time and space, so I'm gonna talk about him anyway.
We are the time haters. We traveled all the way back through time to call you a cracker.
Multiple people have made videos talking about how he's a misogynist freak, and I agree with them. I think those are accurate opinions about him and his content. However, what I think more people could stand to talk about is how he's representing himself in bad faith as a dom, when in reality he's just a douchebag. I've never had the misfortune in engaging in sexual congress with the man, so that's not what I'm going to be talking about, but let's get into what I will be talking about. His username is Alpha Dom, which is presumably a derivative of alpha male, and dominant from BDSM or bondage, discipline, sadism, and masochism, and he's on his third account now. We're not going to get into his obviously AI-enhanced profile picture because I think seeing the enhanced profile picture above all of the unenhanced video thumbnails speaks for itself. But you know, for a guy who calls himself dominant, it sure is easy to scruff him like a little baby cat. If you want to see that, stick around to the end of the video.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy!
With that, it's important to qualify and quantify exactly what an alpha male is. This is based in the concept of a zoological hierarchy, more specifically one that came from a study done on wolves by David Meck, a senior research scientist at the U.S. Geological Survey, from Stephanie Pappas for Scientific American in February of 2023. In the late 1980s and 1990s, Meck observed a pack every year at Ellesmere Island in northeastern Canada. His study, published in 1999 in the Canadian Journal of Zoology, was among the first multi-year research on a single pack over time. It revealed that all members of the pack defer to the breeding male, and that, regardless of sex or age, all pack members besides that male defer to the breeding female. The youngest pups also submit to their older siblings, though when food is scarce, parents feed the young first, much as human parents might tend to a fragile infant. The first time Meck used the term alpha wolf was in The Wolf, Ecology and Behavior of an Endangered Species in 1970. However, it wasn't until after this book was published that Meck grew to see how his conclusions may not have been accurate. From The Myth of the Alpha Wolf by Rivka Galkin for The New Yorker in March of 2023. Meck had relied on research done by captive wolves. The main study at the time was by Rudolf Schenkel. It was logical to pick up Schenkel's work, Meck said, which laid out the terms of lead wolf and bitch wolf, the antecedents of alpha male and alpha female. I'm using that in a scientific context, so I don't need to bleep myself. Schenkel wrote, every mature wolf has an ever-ready expansion power, a tendency to widen, not his personal territory, but rather his own social behavior freedom. He added, the maintenance of a not quite classless status requires constant self-assertion. Schenkel also believed that wolves needed an outlet for aggressive energy, typically released at the weakest individuals of society. It turned out all that stuff was mostly wrong, Meck said. In 2022, his publisher agreed to stop printing the book. Yet, although failed biologists no longer use the term alpha and beta, they have proved too useful for humans to drop. As Kira Cassidy, an associate research scientist with the National Park Service research program in Yellowstone, explained, the wolves generally in those dominant positions are not there because they fought for it. It's not some battle to get to the top position. They're just the oldest, or the parents. In the case of same-sex siblings, it's a matter of personality. Cassidy specializes in wolves' sociality both within and between packs. Wolves do fight with each other. In Yellowstone, where humans can't hunt them, fights are the primary cause of mortality. But most fights between packs are for territory. In Yellowstone, maybe because there's lots to eat and it's a protected area, our packs are larger, more complex family units, she said. Where conditions are harsh, a wolf pack might number 4, 2 parents and 2 pups, because so few pups survive. In Yellowstone, a pack often includes aunts, uncles, and sometimes even more than one breeding pair. From this we can see that even the guy who first coined the term doesn't want people using it because it isn't indicative of a real natural dynamic. So why is it that men on the internet are still using it? A big part of this starts in 1999, from Gore's Secret Guru by Michael Duffy and Karen Tumulty for Time magazine in November of 1999. Feminist author Naomi Wolf, 37, is apparently counseling the Veep on more than just style points. Democratic Party sources say it's Wolf who, more than anyone else, has urged Gore to bare his teeth at the president he has served loyally for more than 7 years. Wolf has argued internally that Gore is a beta male who needs to take on the alpha male in the Oval Office before the public will see him as top dog. In private, sources say Gore expresses an almost primal bitterness about his relationship with Clinton, contending that while he was crucial to getting the president elected in 1992, the public's disgust with Clinton now threatens his own ambitions. questions. At last week's forum with rival Bill Bradley, Gore startled his audience by seizing upon the first question that was thrown to him, a broad one about the questionable behavior of politicians in Washington, to talk about the disappointment and anger that you feel towards President Clinton, and I felt it myself. So for almost 20 years, this has been used to describe power struggles between men wanting to be the dominant male and the drive for men to dominate women. But even the guy who said it could be applied to humans, primatologist and ethologist Franz de Waal, pushes back against this by describing these men as bullies in his TEDmed presentation titled The Surprising Science of Alpha Males from March of 2020.
Well, is a bully.
Human behavioral science just doesn't support the idea of human alpha males. From cognitive scientist Scott Barry Kaufman in The Myth of the Alpha Male for Greater Good magazine in 2015. Taken together, the research suggests that the ideal man for a date or romantic partner is one who is assertive, confident, easygoing, sensitive without being aggressive, demanding, dominant, quiet, shy, or submissive. In other words, a prestigious man, not a dominant man. In fact, it appears that the most prestigious man who is both high in assertiveness and kindness is considered the most attractive to women for both short-term affairs and long-term relationships. Unfortunately, in a patriarchal society that only conditions men to see women as subordinate objects for them to exert power over, the idea of the alpha male simply won't die. However, because we've disproven this time and time again and we know it's not real, we are well within our rights to say that this guy isn't an alpha. He's just a jackass. I feel like this is exemplified in the fact that Moist Critical, or Charlie, made a couple of videos talking about his dog shit dating course, and then Alpha Doofus made no less than like 20 videos responding to him and trying to take him down.
Brother,
Like, I've seen Charlie's videos about this guy. They're pretty fair and even-handed, and I agree with a lot of the things Charlie said, and he fucking bodied your ass, dude. Just take the L and move on. Stop acting so triggered, to use your own terminology, and just take it on the chin the way that you expect so many women to do for you. Anyway, what does all of that have to do with me trying to talk about this alpha ding-dong and how bad he is at representing kink? This is where I'm setting up the framework for me to talk about a book that I've seen pop up a lot of times on lists for people trying to learn about the mechanics and philosophy of kink. Alpha Dingleberry often talks about how the women he plays with love the way that he dominates them in his messy ass undecorated apartment. It begs the question, is what he's doing really domination? Moreover, is it in line with the accepted standards and practices within the kink community? Now, I'm not here to talk about the kinds of kink subgenres that he's into because I don't really give a shit. What I am here to talk about is how he wants to present himself as a representative of, quote, cool kink, when in reality, he has the cool factor of a wet spinach leaf, but one that's been at the bottom of the bag for a long time and the bag is well past the expiry date. I have an issue with this because the way he talks about women and relationships drips with disrespect. It is inextricably linked to the way that he sees himself as a quote-unquote alpha. Exhibit 1.
Understand how Alpha Dom has 7 women? Let me teach you something. Psychological ownership is different than ownership of a possession or thing. In order to adequately own something, psychologically, whether it's a submissive female or a submissive male, you have to understand your own flaws and weaknesses. You have to understand your qualities and their qualities, their traits and your traits. You have to understand their actions and your actions. And that, to understand their actions is much simpler than understanding your own actions, because you have to be unbiased in order to understand your actions. And you have to understand both sides' feelings, both yours and theirs, and their behavior. And once again, like I said, it's much easier to understand and analyze somebody else's feelings and behaviors. It's a billion times harder to understand your own feelings and behaviors. You're welcome. You're getting close to having women.
Exhibit 2.
Stop trying to be her safe place. That's why she's so bored. That's why she's so dry. Women crave a man so powerful, so dominant, that she feels small. In the best way. Not weak. Well, actually, yeah, kind of weak. But especially small. You're welcome.
Exhibit 3.
Here's yet another reason why the kink community is a toxic waste. Teaching that consent needs to be taught first.
Huh?
I know a lot of people aren't going to like this one. That is the incorrect answer. Consent is not the first thing you teach.
Huh?
Here's 2 things and then 1 really important thing that needs to be taught before consent is ever taught. Number 1, general attraction and spark. If you don't know how to do that, you're never going to have to worry about consent because no woman's ever going to be attracted to you.
That is not correct.
If you don't know how to do banter, you don't know how to do cocky funny, you're not going to do well. Number 2, understanding the deep things in a normal relationship, which you then have to amplify by 1,000 times in order to make a kink dynamic work. Those are the ones where if people argue on it, fine, whatever. Okay, but here's the one thing that you can't argue. If you do not understand body language, vocal tone, facial expression, and psychology, you should not be a dom. You should not be worrying about what consent is because you have no fucking clue. You know how many times I've been in a scene where a girl is so fucking stuck in subspace, she forgets a fucking safe word, and I have to read her body language or her vocal tone or just her being in order to pull the plug because she won't, because she's either too much into, I'm gonna get through this, I'm gonna get through this, I'm gonna get through this, he's gonna be happy with me, or any panic state where I've had to be like, nope, pulling the plug. A lot. Consent will only get you so far. If you can't read a girl's body while you're doing this stuff, you have no business being a dominant. and the amount of dominants that I have met that are actually my level at reading body language on a girl, including the female doms I've trained, I can count on one hand. So no, the kink community is wrong.
Jail. Right away. No trial, no nothing.
And Exhibit 4.
Here's another reason why kink community events like munches and classes and things like that don't work out. There's no privacy. So if you do start fucking sparking off with somebody, not only do you have prying eyes, you'll literally have people walk over to you and try to fucking like either get into the fucking interaction or try to protect. And there's nothing more unattractive than some fucking 69-year-old fucking be like, well, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't go to his house tonight. You just met tonight. I wouldn't do that.
Right to jail. Right away.
This is also kind of a self-report to me, because why would people be coming over to intervene in his interactions with other people if he wasn't being a fucking weirdo to them?
Suspicious.
That's loser behavior, if you ask me. And that's the tea. What he's describing with munches and classes and workshops is community. That's what that is. This is people coming together to support each other and make social connections, which is the definition of community. It's collaborative education and play in a safe space. Alpha Dick Sneeze doesn't like that, because when the community has more people in it, that means more eyes are able to see when you exploit someone and mistreat them, which means that he isn't allowed to do whatever he wants. Community also has rules that apply to everybody, and he doesn't like it when rules could be applied to him. So he's declaring himself the winner, taking the ball gag, and going home.
Screw you guys. I'm going home.
What he's doing is trying to convince the people in his audience that they don't need community. For the men in his audience, a lack of community means there's less people around who will force them to take accountability for when they use his advice and inevitably hurt someone. For the women who are inexplicably in his audience, and the women who encounter the men in his audience, it means that you are isolated from a support system that will be able to raise red flags for when his fanboys mistreat you. It's a means with which to maintain the most control you can have over anyone and everyone that they are trying to get involved with romantically. It's bad. It's bad, is what I'm saying. Also, he's such a bad faith actor. While I was researching this, he posted a video talking about ageism within kink, saying that he, as a 19-year-old, had more right to take over a scene or lead a workshop than somebody who's been in the community for years upon years. Which is so crazy to me, because he poses it as an issue of older people trying to maintain control over younger people, and he tries to suggest that it's some sort of predatory thing. The issue of older people preying on younger people, specifically older men preying on younger women, is a real, actual problem. But the issue he has with it is that people aren't letting him be the predator, and they aren't letting him get away with posing a threat to other people within the community. Also, if you thought it couldn't get any worse, him and his girlfriends are all Trump supporters. This brings me to the point where I tell you he's not a dom, he's just a jackass. This is the point in the video where I put my 2 English degrees to use and engage in literary analysis to talk about why this dude sucks ass, and not in the fun way. I want to pivot for a moment to writing on How to Be an Ethical Dom Top, first published in 2003 by Dossie Easton and Janet W. Hardy, which was re-released under the title The New Topping Book in 2011. The New Topping Book outlines a lot of the conceptual construction of what being a dominant top means in a BDSM relationship. Easton and Hardy also outlined that a big part of it is that you have to respect the people that you play with, and everything this dude says makes me feel like the only person he has respect for is himself, if that. He views domination and topping as a free pass to demean and degrade people in a way that is not consensual or fun for the person who wants to be demeaned and degraded. So chapters 1 through 5 are all about how to do this safely and ethically in a way that is fun for everyone involved, as well as the rights and responsibilities of being a dom top. In a section titled Why We're Writing This, Easton and Hardy write, while outsiders often assume that any player in his right mind could be a top, the reality is that the joys of topping are often more abstract than those of bottoming, and that its responsibilities and burdens are great. This references their other title, The New Bottoming Book, which is the same thing as this one except for bottoms and subs. Easton and Hardy then elaborate on what exactly is the core of this exchange of power. A lot of folks use the phrase consensual power exchange to define S&M. We're not entirely happy with this phrase. We think that using the word power that so often means non-consensual force or coercion can be misleading. In fact, what we do in S&M is that we act as though we were giving up or taking real-world power, while retaining the ability to keep as much power as we need to feel safe, or to take no more than we feel okay about having. So in this way, it's about creating a safe space where 2 or more people can explore power dynamics, sensory experiences, etc., while qualifying those situations with clear negotiations around physical and emotional boundaries, safety precautions, trust, and consent. Boundaries, safety, trust, and consent are all an important part of this, because Easton and Hardy say immediately after this, in S&M, the participants have one another's well-being as their paramount goal. One of the characteristics that defines safe play is a recognition of the boundaries between our fantasies and our realities. What Alpha Dorkass doesn't want to do, and is encouraging other people not to do, is have concern for the well-being or safety of his or their partners, because in his mind, all of this is centered around him and him only.
Me.
Now, we're going to get a little theoretical here because Easton and Hardy go on to say in Chapter 1, from feminist theory, we have learned to distinguish between power over and power with. Power over is a behavior pattern in which a person measures personal power by his or her ability to control others. You increase your own power by stealing power from someone else. You can see this dynamic anywhere you see rigid hierarchies or chains of command, like the military or the corporate ladder. In our experience, if your goal is to build a sense of empowerment and solid self-esteem, stealing power doesn't work very well. You can't build a solid sense of self-esteem by stealing someone else's. When people strive to empower themselves this way, they behave like addicts, constantly scheming to replenish a supply of power that was never truly theirs. On the other hand, there is power with. Power with enables us to get more power by sharing our power with others. The more power I have, the more power you have. By supporting one another in our power, we get more for ourselves. This is really the crux of Alpha Dickwad's whole shtick. He has such a deep pathological need to take power from others in order to feel empowered himself, and he's attempting to create a following that will make him feel normal for doing and wanting that. He's solidly embedded himself in a community full of other men with the same pathological need for power over others, specifically women, in order to accomplish that, because he knows as long as he's close with them, he will never be held accountable for the harm he perpetuates or maintain responsibility to anybody except himself. We can see that when he shows videos of himself interacting with his submissives in a way that feels entirely too performative to be real, like the now deleted video of him laying on some girl's ass like a pillow, or the now deleted video of women tied up in various fetish gear kneeling on the floor of his nasty ass apartment. Like, when I saw that video of the women tied up in his living room, I just knew that whole apartment smells like it's never been vacuumed the whole time he's lived there. Like it has never known the healing touch of soap. Like the carpets smell like there's dogs in there, but there are not and have never been dogs in there. Like there's a distinct smell of mildew in every space where there's a water-based fixture. The apartment reflects the level of respect he has for other people, is what I'm saying. This begs the question, whose fantasy is it to have this guy specifically dominating them? This is someone who, in his now deleted videos, has constantly talked down about himself, yet simultaneously brags about how he's still cool and hot and desirable. It seems like he puts so much of an emotional burden on his partners to reaffirm his masculinity and self-image that it simply shouldn't be worth the trouble. I'm not going to speculate about the women who he allegedly sleeps with, but I will offer this for some insight about what's going on in his empty ass head. A head so empty that a peanut could rotate in the center of it for 1,000 years and never touch the sides. From Easton and Hardy. One question that comes up when we actually sit down to negotiate a scene is, whose fantasy are we playing, the tops or the bottoms? The answer is either or both, or whatever the two of you decide will work best. Some bottoms are not comfortable talking about their fantasies for fear of seeming too directive, but we believe that it is a requirement for a skilled and supportive bottom to be able to tell you about her desires. As a top, you need some information to figure out what will make this scene work. Now, this is relevant because not a single video of his that I have seen talks about these fantasies or the desires of the women that he's with as their own. It's always derivative of his own fantasies and desires, like these women were just so taken by him that they willingly forget themselves just to make him happy. In that respect, it's not a push and a pull with another person, it's just opportunities for him to satisfy his deep hunger to take power from others. Further, from Easton and Hardy, they make this very clear distinction. As Sir Stephen remarked in the story of Oh, we are indeed fond of rituals. BDSM is often characterized by a certain formality or ritual quality that reminds us of opera gowns, dress uniforms, nuns' habits, or other formal signifiers. That's because play, to a very real degree, is about symbolism. The kidnapping we do for erotic pleasure reflects an arousing fantasy, since in our fantasy the kidnappers do exactly what we want, and when we play, we make sure the kidnappers are doing exactly what we want. A ritual of helplessness in the face of overwhelming stimulus. An actual kidnapping with no concern for the feelings of the victim would be a life-shattering reality. The symbol enables us to confront our simultaneous fear of and attraction to the genuine horrors of the world, but we need form and structure to clarify the distinction between the symbol and the thing itself. In that way, it's really obvious that he doesn't want there to be a distinction between the symbol of total control and domination over another person and the reality of it. From the way he talks about what behavior men should emulate, I feel like he doesn't want there to be a symbol at all. He seems like somebody who genuinely enjoyed Robin Thicke's song Blurred Lines and didn't understand what made everybody so upset, is what I'm saying. All of this to say that there are responsibilities outlined in Easton and Hardy that Alpha Dumbfuck would most likely think are totally unnecessary. Very quickly, those are the responsibility or right to know and state your needs, wants, and limits, following through on your promises, be a steward of your and your partner's physical safety, be a steward of your and your partner's emotional safety, be prepared in the event of an emergency, and care for your equipment. This is important because going back to what he said before about not needing community, it acknowledges that we as people have responsibilities towards each other and ourselves, because that's the reality of being a human being. Whether you like it or not, humans have a responsibility of care and consideration for each other that Alpha Dud just feels like he can excuse himself from.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Finally, this is a moment for me to be a toothpaste hater, because the fact that his gums are that red, inflamed, and receding from his teeth, and his teeth are that discolored, proves to me that he does not care enough about himself to respect his own body. And if he can't be asked to do the bare minimum to take care of his own body, he will not give a fuck about yours. I'm allowed to say that because I went through a decade and a half of orthodontia, and I refuse to be spoken down to by somebody who can't even be bothered to brush his goddamn teeth every once in a while. TLDW, ultimately, I just think this dude sucks on an individual level. He wants to be a representative of, quote, cool kink, when in reality, he's just a selfish prick. He wants to put on like he's an alpha male, when in reality, he's just a misogynist bully. He wants to act like he's all big and bad, but that's just to hide the fact that he has a low sense of self-esteem and is a small, sad man. I feel like all the time that he spent yapping about his dog dating advice could have been better spent in therapy. Also, for the notorious alpha dickhole, if you are watching, before you hop in your car and turn on that damn phone to try and make fun of me for having a nose piercing, or being fat, or being a pronoun-having liberal, or some other ad hominem attack that you're so fond of, I'd like to remind you that when someone saw you in real life and took your own advice directly to you, they scruffed you like a little baby cat.
I was at my local Planet Fitness and look who I ran into. Alpha Dom, the infamous dating coach. That's me with the big-ass noggin right there. My mom says it's to protect the few brain cells I have left. But I said, hey man, can I get a picture with you? No one's going to believe this. And he goes, no, sorry, I don't have enough time. And I said, I don't have to accept your rejection, buddy. Now get over here. And I grabbed him by the back of his shirt and pulled him over. The poor Planet Fitness employee had no idea what was going on, and I asked him to take this picture. But also, I'm 6'3", 225. You're not. You're dominated, buddy.
I will not take constructive criticism from you, because I sure as shit am not taking any of your advice. Punch sand, cry about it, talk to the wall, etc. Or, from your own terminology,
Don't argue with me. Don't argue with me. Don't argue with me.
go fuck yourself, is what I'm saying. Anyway, for everybody else watching, that's all I have for you today. Stay tuned for tomorrow, when it'll be tomorrow. Bye.